Take two. I flipped the phone over so the microphone's closer to me talking because I don't have a remote mic yet. I'm thinking about it. This is going to be a video full of tangents, but they're purposeful tangents. This time it's not just me going off, although I'm almost guaranteeing that's also going to happen. But I had actually 3 or 4 things I want to talk about. First of all, parts are packed, ready to go. I have to get them into a box and figure out some shipping charges. But I just remembered one thing, which is going to be the first unscheduled tangent. We're just going to call them unscheduled tangents. I remember that on the list, they're asking for trans red windows. And I just realized I actually don't have any. Sorry, I don't have any trans red windows. Although, this is related to tangent number 2, I guess. I haven't been on eBay in such a long time, but I've been watching some other TikTokers. Not that my TikTok channel is great, but I've been watching other TikTokers talk about some lots, some really good used lots they've been getting on TikTok. So I've been, casually looking at TikTok for a used lot and or an item I can bid on and see if I'm going to win. Kind of like my old Let's Buy 12 Galaxy Explorers in one year for under $75. So I went on TikToks and I looked around and excuse me. Yes, I still have the cough. I looked up monorail. It's way too expensive. Like seriously, it's like I could retire tomorrow. It's kind of expensive. I could buy a cottage in the Muskokas, kind of. Not really, but so I was looking for classic space, and there's some good used lots in there, but every one of them, it seemed that people are just trying to make money. Like I can't justify those prices that I saw. There was a trans yellow lot that I would have bought had I not had already tons of trans yellow. That was like $30, and that seemed to be appropriate for the number of pieces you were getting that looked like they were in reasonably good condition. But almost everything else I saw was way too much for what I consider to be the warranted value of, increased cost for classic space from 40 years ago. But there was an auction for a bunch of Space Police 1, Blacktron 1, some minor parts from before that, printed tiles and slopes and stuff. That was bidding auction, and when I saw it, it was $6.50 for, I think, 30 pieces. And I'm going, woohoo! And I put my bid on it, expecting to be outbid before the bidding was over. It wasn't. I actually got it for like a whole $15. Woohoo! So that's coming this way, and I'm sure I'll make a video about it when I get the shipping to here. It already says it's already been shipped from the US of A. Also, that leads right into the next tangent. To finish all these up, this is a planned tangent. There's that guy way there in the background. That's still together. It's not put in storage yet like the rest of the pieces and sets that I reconstituted. It's still there. And because I'm waiting, because I'll keep this a bit of a secret until I get it, but I did place an order from somewhere for something to complete that set. And I'm going to be pleasantly surprised if it works, and if it works, it'll be a great video. If it doesn't work, I'll still make a video about it and tell you why it didn't work. But we will see what happens with that. So that guy is still out there until the order shows up, but it might be weeks and or months before it gets here, because that's what usually happens in this instance. I talked about this, ready to go. Most of the pieces my friend asked for are in here. I will get that into a box and ship it to them. Also, I've had a friend who's talking about an 854. I'm getting all the pieces together, including the alternate pieces that were in that lot, and I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to take it to the post office to see how much shipping is and get them a price to see if they want to pay that or not, because this one is just, it's not necessary, but he wants it, and I want him to have it. But the shipping, if it's stupid, I'm sure we'll cross paths at some point in the future, or I'll give it to a friend, I'll give it to him, and we'll get it to him at some point. But because he didn't have one, and again, I was lucky enough to get one in 1977 and get a whole bunch more I can safely say, like, I got the Galaxy Explorers. I got 12 of them on eBay over the years and reconstituted a bunch over the years from various used lots that I got. But I got my original in 1977 for, I think, Christmas. And then it wasn't too long after. It wasn't immediately, but it wasn't too because I was in my teens when I started, buying used lots, that I got another one in a used lot. So probably mid 80s. But I think if you look through my YouTube videos in just the past 2 years, I've got 2 or 3 in used lots, and I've got many before that. So I think I have well over a dozen actual 854/948, and forget the fact that you can just build one out of basic Technic parts, right? If you have Technic parts, you can build one anyway without actually acquiring the actual set. Overall, if you have like there's nothing unique about the 854 except for the sticker. And I think there's actually Brick Sticker Shop and the other places that have the stickers for the 854, and you can just order those online, but I make my own for my Cricut. It could be a ubiquitous set, but it is my favorite. So I don't mind keeping on finding them in my used lots. But my friend didn't have one, so I'm actually looking forward to, hopefully the shipping is not going to be stupid expensive, and we'll agree on that, and then I'll just ship it to him and he can have it. The other thing that I meant to talk about in the last bunch of videos, but I was too busy focused on other things. That guy there. So when I went to Brickomania, I went with a very good friend from Torolug. We drove down together, and we split the cost of the room. And that went, my first time, actually, I would say, for my first convention, like previous convention, Sandy was always there. So, of course, we just had a room for Sandy, me, and Josh. So this is the first ever Lego convention that I was flying solo. And then my buddy from Turtleluck says, hey, you're going and I'm going. I want to go. And so we split the cost. It was fantastic. A very good driving partner, because it was a 7-hour drive, and I was, tired, and yet we talked the entire way, and it was not forced or whatever. It was awesome. It was like one of my favorite road trips ever with a good friend. And of course we talked about our hobbies, mutual shared love of Lego. But he did notice, and he probably noticed it before, in my classic space layout, which is that guy right there. The one item in the classic space layout, and I said this before, that I did not build is my friend Jeff's rocket. And it's been in the layout since 2000 whatever, when we were doing a shared layout for all those years. And Jeff was gracious enough to let me keep the rocket for when I'm doing my solo layout of just all my stuff. And he let me keep the rocket, and I built him a nice rocket gantry for his rocket in the layout. So I do appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you for lending me your rocket for all these decades. But at the time when Jeff built it, I believe at the time he had 3 blue fins and 1 blue tail, or tails, fins, whatever, 1 red one. And my friend that I drove down to Brickomania said, "Ooh, you have 3 in 1." I said, "Yeah, it's just like cute, because like it's just the way it always is." And some people notice it, but many people don't notice it. He says, "Well, tell you what, the next time I see you," because he had some, so he gave me 2, 1 blue and 1 red. So I don't know if I'm gonna go 2 red and 2 blue, or all 4 blue. I will make up my mind at some future point. Let's see if. So I thought that was kind of cute. That was very sweet of him to give me these pieces. So that's that tangent done. But now on to the main conversation that I'm sure will be filled with lots of tangents. And that is this guy. And this guy was at Mississauga ComicCon yesterday, Sunday. My original intent for ComicCon this year, Mississauga ComicCon, which is a really vastly different show than, say, Anime North, where there's 30,000 people walking by your area every day. Mississauga ComicCon is very, very small. It's very small. It's put on by local people, and it's really cute, and it's very, very family oriented, like young as 4, 5, and 6. And so basically families show up and all the kids are dressed up as Spider-Man and Batman, and there's face painting and there's mask making and blah, blah, blah. And there's people, you know, selling their comic wares and blah, blah. And they are gracious enough to give Toro Lug a room, basically, where we can display Lego stuff. And I went last year, and it was the first year I brought my mini layout, which is basically the tower and the habitat. And that worked very, very well last year. The layout was, I condensed the layout down to about 4 foot by 5 foot or 3 foot by 5 foot. And it took like less than half an hour to set up, even less time to take down. I loved it. So I like the granularity or the variability, that's a better word, variability of what I'm trying to do with the layout, because I have now a small layout that I can bring to shows that I can set up very, very fast, that has the main tower and just one little building and one little strip of monorail moving around, so there's at least movement on it, and a couple of ships on base plates. Very, very easy to set up. And then I have my standard one, which was the one that you've been watching all these videos on at Mississauga, at the Brickomania and at Bricks in the Six in the past 5 years or 7 years, back to BrickFet, which is 5 foot by 7.5 foot. That's my standard layout, but I've also started to design combining both the small layout and the regular layout into a big layout. So instead of 3 by 5 and then 5 by 7.5, the big layout's like it's 5 by 10 basically, or 5 by 9, and it just expands it to the right, so there's more place to put stuff. And that's going to be possibly going forward for the big conventions like ours. Next year I'll probably bring it to Bricks in the 60, expand the layout. I do have to copperize lots of monorail rails, because I added a lot more monorail, because of course it's going into the new space, and a lot more base plates, but nothing's going to be permanent. I'm not going to be taping base plates to the wood underneath, because it's just going to be ad hoc. So I can change it up. So I was looking forward to that. So I started designing it. But anyway, so the original intent for Mississauga ComicCon was for me to bring the small layout again. And as the Sunday approached last week, not only was I stupid busy at work, and so I didn't have time in the evenings. I was too tired in the evenings to actually dig out the boxes in the garage. The boxes of the layout are buried at the back of the garage right now, with everything put in there from the fall and getting ready for winter. And like, it's just, I couldn't get near the boxes in the garage last week. I was planning on doing it on Saturday, and then Saturday just got away from us. We were doing a whole bunch of stuff, good stuff, fun stuff, nothing serious, but we had a good Saturday, busy and doing, winters to come in, so we were just getting all the leaves and whatever. Anyway, you do the houseworks and stuff, and then Sunday was the show. so I said at the very last minute, we got home Saturday night very late, and I sent a text to all the people that were running Mississauga ComicCon from the Toro Lug people, and I did promise them the layout, the small version of the layout, but I said I can't bring it. It's just going to be too hard to dig up, and I had to be there early in the morning to set up. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll just bring this thing, because it did a pretty good job the week before in Newmarket, at the Newmarket show. But what I had to do is I took away the issues that I had at the Newmarket show, and I had to rebuild it. So on Saturday night at 1 o'clock when we got home, I came down here and I rebuilt this whole thing from bottom to top. And I built that thing, rebuilt that thing to make it better. And it was ready. And again, I'm going to say it was completely show worthy, because at Newmarket, halfway through the time at Newmarket, it stopped being show worthy. The gears were skipping and breaking, because there was some, I was so busy to build it fast for the Newmarket show. I knew there was going to be a flaw in the build process. And I'll explain it to you when I show it to you, and you'll see why. And I said, because I'm so used to my robot building back in the day, where I over-engineer literally everything on my old robots. I wish I had a picture of that right now. But I was cutting corners, shall we say, on this guy when I built him. And because I was lazy, and I was just like trying to get it done. And I said, that's good enough. Well, it turned out not to be good enough, because halfway through Newmarket, it basically stopped working properly. I mean, it still spun, but there were some issues with it. And I said, I'm going to fix that. And of course, I didn't get around to fixing it till 1 o'clock Sunday morning, right before the show. So I rebuilt it. And then I brought it to the Mississauga ComicCon on Sunday, and I dropped it down. And besides one gear breaking halfway through the day, I got a nice text message when I went for lunch saying that it was clicking, so they turned it off. The people who were there watching the show. And excuse me, when I came back, oh, there's a gear broken. I could take it apart and replace the gear. Other than that, it ran flawlessly the entire day. And I was so impressed with that. Now, I did some recoding of the program on the fly when I was there because I was noticing there were some deficiencies in the program. And that's just because I did my error checking in the program. But when you have like 50 kids pushing buttons and turning wheels, the program got a little confused. So I had to make it more robust, because the whole point about this thing for me, besides, you know, how interesting it looks, is to drop it off and forget about it, walk away, let it run itself. That was the whole point of this for shows, so I don't have to babysit it. The layout, I want to talk to people, and sometimes I have to babysit, things fall off, blah, blah, blah. But this thing I didn't want to babysit, so I tried to make it as robust as possible. I should have put more effort into the actual building it and the programming it. The program was pretty good. It was pretty good, but there was some, you know, the kids are sitting there and they're pressing the button and nothing's happening because I put too much whatever and not enough whatever. Anyway, the program I'll go into in a second. But overall, from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock, besides the broken gear at lunchtime, it ran perfectly. And I couldn't have been happier about it. And I'm going to say Newmarket was fine, but nobody really got it. And it was in a dark corner, and I didn't have the black light and blah, blah, blah. But at Mississauga, it wowed people. And I was really, because I have a tough time, you know, really thinking that this is like, oh my goodness, I think it's an average build. But a lot of people were just, oh, this is fantastic. And then the dads were talking to their kids about the engineering principles and the gears and blah, 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 because they could see what's going on here. And a lot of people are trying to figure out how these things never hit one another and blah, blah, blah. So there was some really good conversations on Sunday about this thing. And I was very happy that happened. I honestly was. I was very happy that happened, that this thing got the feedback that I got on Sunday about this thing. But I do have more room for more improvement that I'll get into as the tangents progress. But let's just get into it for a second. So also, this thing was on the top of a very slippery table, so I'm going to put rubber feet on it before we do anything else for the next show, so it doesn't slide around. Because that was also a takeaway. But the main takeaway that I had, I hit run. The main issue with this thing that I had was I brought it home after 4. I came home, and look at that. Is that the button and the wheel were just sticky, because of course through the entire 6 hours a whole bunch of 4 to 10-year-olds were running up after whatever they were doing with the face painting and everything else and touching this thing. And I can't believe right now that I did not take that into consideration. Like, it's like in any other given circumstance, we had those signs, please do not touch, please do not touch, please do not touch. And on this one, this is what I have printed: moving art, spin the wheel or press the white button and see what happens. And that was like right there. And so kids did that, which I told them to do that. But I completely forgot to take into consideration what's going to happen when they do that for 6 hours. So this was a great idea. But in the 21st century, with everything that's going on, with the COVIDs and the sicknesses and blah, 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 I'm going to come up with something different. It's going to be a no-touch sensor input to do this stuff. And I'm going to have fun designing it because I already got thoughts in my head. Yeah, so this was a great idea. But in the end, when I got home, I had to take some Lysol wipes to it. I should have thought about that. I honestly don't know. I can't believe I didn't think about that. But as you can see, the program itself. So before, I'll give you the heads up. So the button's always done this, basically. So you press the button. If it's moving, if you press the button, it'll stop. If it's stopped moving and you press the button, it'll go again. That's the whole purpose of the button. The one thing that the program did before is that if you press, okay, right now it's stopped, and you press the button once, it'll spin to the left, and you stop it again. If you start it again before, it would spin to the left again, because it was just a set program. You press the button, run this bit of code, which says turn left for X amount of time, and then turn right for an X amount of time. So I added a variable to the program that whichever way it's spinning, it would make a semaphore that says it's spinning that way, and the next time you do anything, it'll spin the opposite way. So if you press the button, it'll, as you can see, it spins in the exact opposite way. If you hold the button down, it'll spin one way, and then it'll spin the other way. So what I had in the original program, and I talked to my good buddy Callum about it, is I also I did take kids into consideration. I did not want them mashing the button and just kept on like without any kind of delay between sensor inputs, because then it was like bzz, 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 bzz. And so there's a 1 second and 2 second delay between sensor inputs reading the sensor. So yeah, I guess that's 1 second. I took that into consideration in the program, that they can't mash the button and expect things, because there's kids that are just going like that the entire time, right? Well, that's not going to work. I programmed it not to work. It'll work every second. So if you wait, and then you press the button, and you wait, and you press the button. But if you go like this, so that part worked flawlessly. So I'm happy about that. The other thing I did was that on this guy, when you spun it this way, the more you spin it, you can hear it. Like if you go, listen, slower, faster, and faster. So that's the rotation sensor, just adding values to the speed number. So it starts off at speed 0 and it goes to speed 7, which is what the RCX does. The issue that I did before is that if it's at 7 and you start spinning the other way, it will count down from 7 back to 0 and then to -7. And if it goes below 0 to -7, it spins in the opposite direction. And so some people were just going like that the entire time. And then they would start going the other way, and they were wondering why it wasn't going the other way, because you have to get it from 7 to 0 first. Then what I did this time is I said, as soon as it starts spinning the other way, set the speed to 0 and go in the other direction. If you go this way, so instantaneously, it would go in the opposite direction. The second you spin it in the other direction, so you go up to 7 here and backwards, you go this way, it goes to 7 that way. So I changed that program when I was at the show, which is a lot of fun coding and talking to the audience, by the way. So because a lot of kids were like questioning, like, I'm spinning it in the other direction and it's not doing anything because it wasn't going back down to 0 fast enough for them, because you have to keep on spinning it to get it past 0 to go into the negative numbers. I also did some code cleanup, a lot more if statements, because I used to separate everything, if it's going positive, and then if it's going from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, blah, blah, blah. And then up to 7 and stop at 7, because it goes to 8. It goes basically, if you put speed 8, I believe, it goes to speed 1. So you hear it go zzz, 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 as you're spinning it around. So if it gets to speed 7, it just stops at speed 7. And if it goes to speed -7, it's just speed 7, but reversed. So I cleaned up some coding. So the coding's working flawlessly now, which I like. But this is what happened. So I'll tell you what the big flaw is before I rebuilt it on, and this is going to be, the plastic dust is normal. This is the bottom, nothing to look at. But I'm glad I used these 5.5L axles that have the little stop on it, because now you cannot push it and push it tight enough so that this thing binds in here. It has a little bit of wiggle room. So that worked perfectly well. Although again, you can use any other axle even without the bushings on it. So what happened before is I have a 2x8 Technic plate going through here. So I could have the gear, the 45-degree bevel gear going up for this axle and going up for this axle. And yeah, it's still going. Let me just turn that off. So what this 2x8, and look, check out the plastic dust is normal. Look at that black tooth, 8-tooth gear. So you got all the gray dust on it because it ran all day. And this is why I have that delay in there, because the delay worked perfectly too, so it doesn't spin all the time. It'll like rest for a minute, minute and a half before it spins again. I do have to, there used to be threads on the lug nuts and the other places that says you can buy this either dry lubricant or some other lubricant to stop the plastic dust or help this, because these things get really dusty inside the big huge gears here. The oh, for crying out loud, I'm forgetting all these names. Anyway, I'll call it the big gear. The plastic dust builds up between the two pieces of this gear. Anyway, so the 2x8 Technic plate here, and there's one there. I did not have in the front, I did not have a Technic plate on the bottom for the axle to go into, and you can see here it does. And so this thing was just a 2L axle, and it held on to the 45 degree bevel gear. It came up through the plate and it went to the 8-tooth gear, and so it would wobble back and forth. And as it wobbled back and forth, this gear worked its way off, and it just popped right off. And I said, that's because this bottom part isn't fixed at the bottom into another Technic hole. And so I put another 2x8 across the bottom now, and that's what this guy's now. So this gear, this axle now is completely vertical all the time. So it did not move horizontally at all through the entire show, because as it kept on going back and forth from forward to backwards, the gear would just work its way up the the 2L axle. So this is how I used to build all my stuff. If I was ever doing this before, I'd always have one end in one Technic hole and the other end or some other place, so you have the axle solid, doesn't wiggle around in one spot. Other than that, I changed the look of it a little bit. The one thing I did say, because it says right here, press the white button. I used to have the 2x2 things on here for design. And so when I got there, these things would still be on there for design, and people were pressing them because they were just looking at this thing. And so I removed